Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back to our MIT Men in Training uh, afternoon session. This is a recovery, a substance abuse, drug, alcohol related informed recovery support group where we bring you information from the office live to you. Today, I am bringing an article that I found online, which you can go to as well and retrieve it. And you can retrieve this article from Footprints Store Recovery.com. Footprint Store Recovery.com. All right. And so, once again, I'm bringing you this article. First of all, and foremost, let me let the audience know that each week we bring you some informed information. A lot of this material is from articles that we may find that we feel that is informative and that can shed some light on recovery as it relates to the individual, to the family, the community, and from every aspect that we can imagine and that we would like to bring to you. And so a lot of this stuff is not of our own. You may hear me share my story, share my experience, because I am someone in recovery as well. And so today, title that we're going to share with you, that is what causes drug or alcohol addiction. I am a recovery coach. I am not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. I am someone who help people restore their lifestyle back together because I am fortunate enough to know and say that I'm able to recover from alcohol and drugs addiction myself. And so, which brought about a lot of behaviors that I had to, that I was hold or held accountable for. Without me rambling and on, I'm trying to get through this as quick as possible before I get into the article. So, but I want people to know that these segments or these episodes that we shared is from articles. It's not of my own. You'll see me. I'm going to be reading these, and as I read, sometimes I get thoughts or flashback, and I begin to reminisce of whereas maybe I can share some insight to someone who may be going through similar experiences. All right. And so let's go right into the article. It starts off by letting us know that not everyone who uses drugs and alcohol will develop addiction. What causes addiction is typically a blend of environmental and biological factors. Addiction is a complex disease that may involve a number of underlying issues, not just one. Environmental factors can feed off biological components of addiction and vice versa. For instance, you may have depression, experience unhealthy relationship with caregiver as a child, and also have a close relative with a substance use disorder. These are examples of some of the factors that can contribute to drug and alcohol abuse, right? And so I'm going to go over some topics that the article present to us, and I'm sharing with you. Environmental factors of addiction. The age-old question of nature versus nurture comes into play here. As it relates to addiction, the answer is usually that both play a role. Nature versus nurture. Another one is family dynamics. Maladaptive family dynamics can contribute to substance abuse. That word maladaptive is an unhealthy state of being. So, unhealthy state of being or family members' dynamics can contribute to substance abuse. Unhealthy attachment styles and dysfunctional family roles are often underlying addiction factors. For instance, one or both of your parents may have been overly enmeshed, ambivalent, or unavoidant in the way they related to you. Your early relationships can have a long lasting impact on your psyche and how you relate to others throughout your life. Trying to cope with resulting emotional turmoil and behaviors through drugs and alcohol is common, all right? So there is factors, family dynamics here. Another one can uh, lead up to drug and alcohol addiction is trauma. The link between trauma and substance abuse is strong. Types of trauma that can contribute to alcohol abuse and drug addiction include assault, rape, military combat, physical or sexual abuse, natural disasters, witnessing traumatic events. Emotional trauma can from childhood, like abuse and neglect, can also trigger drug and alcoholism and alcohol abuse later in life. Right? So, as you can hear from this article, people who have been in military combat, people who have been in relationships issues, uh, childhood, things that you may have witnessed, can cause one to have traumatic event that can cause one to have drug or alcohol addiction. Not always, not to say it can happen always, but sometimes it can. And so a lot of times people may wonder why some people or loved ones are, I don't want to say drug addict, but have a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, because there can be environmental factors, there can be family dynamics, there can be trauma. And so there are a host of factors that can lead one to drug or alcohol addiction. Let's go into something else that article wants us to know about, and that is substance use by caregivers. Growing up in an environment where drinking was common can predict problems drinking later in life. For an example, some research shows that if your parents regularly drank alcohol and had permissive attitudes around alcohol, you're more likely to drink. Remember, we're talking about the old adage or the old saying, nature versus nurture, right? Another component or factors that can lead to that, and that is peer pressure. We hear about this growing up in school at an adolescent age, even further to early adulthood or later on. Some people chose or may become addicted because of a whole host of things. Researchers found that being asked to drink or smoke by friends is one of the strongest predictors of substance use in adolescence, even outweighing parenting styles or parental drinking behaviors. Adolescents aren't the only ones that fall prey to peer pressure. Even middle-aged drinkers face peer pressure when it comes to alcohol use. One study by the Medical Research Council found many middle-aged people admit to making excuses such as dieting and drinking to avoid feeling pressure into drinking. All right? Let's move right along. How environmental factors can fuel addiction. Drugs and alcohol can provide a temporary escape from painful feelings and stress in the moment. The problem is that it's temporary. Substance abuse ultimately makes these issues worse. When you use addictive substances, your brain changes, its chemistry is altered because they are mind altering substances. Drugs and alcohol can cause surges of dopamine, which is one of the brain's chemical messengers that regulates emotions and signal feelings of pleasure. Repeated use of drugs or alcohol can actually change the way your brain responds to pleasure, right? Repeated use of drugs and alcohol can actually change the way your brain responds to pleasure. It can impact your reward processing pathways. This can lead to addiction. As your brain becomes dependent on substances to produce feel good chemicals, you can then experience cravings and difficult withdrawal symptoms without drugs. The seeds of addiction can also be planted early on. Children and teenagers have a less fully formed prefrontal cortex than adults, right? Brain is not as fully developed as an adult, young people, all right? This means they are more apt to be impulsive and not think through consequences as much, making them more likely to experiment with drugs and alcohol. So a lot of times, I was someone who started out at a very young age. So if you have young children or siblings or people that you may know, and you may say, well, why did this person or why is this person indulging in drugs or alcohol at such young age? These can, from this article, lets us know some of these behaviors could be caused by undeveloped minds, brains at the time. All right. And so let's move on. Peer pressure and a lack of parental oversight can add to this challenge. Some research suggests close to 80% of teens report using alcohol or drugs at some point before reaching adulthood. This can be a predictor for addiction down the line. Teen drug and alcohol use can make you 2 to 3 times more likely to struggle with addiction as an adult. Not every teenager who tries substances will become addicted to drugs or alcohol. Some risk factors include, here are some risk factors. A high stress environment, right? Talk about risk factors. A high risk environment, okay, where we may reside in high risk environment. These can be some of the factors that lead young people or mid-aged people to experiment or begin to use alcohol or drug as a relief mechanism. Number two, a social group that encourages drug or alcohol use, being around certain people, all right, certain environments. Parents not involved in or relaxed parental attitude toward drug and alcohol use, not being informed properly or thoroughly, not close when parents may brush things off as if it's not a big deal, or if their child is not engaged in that behavior, right? An unstable home life, often from a young age. And so there's other factors that contribute to unstable home life, right? Let's get into the next part of this article I want to share with us, and that is genetic factors of addiction. Remember, we talked about nature versus nurture, all right? So, genetic factors of addiction. The link between genetics and addiction is strong. Studies show heritability of the disease at 30% to 70% based on the substance abuse. If your parent or an immediate family member struggles with addiction, you may be twice as likely to abuse drugs and alcohol than someone who doesn't have the same genetic link. While scientists haven't found out specific addiction gene, a large body of research points to genetic influences in people who abuse alcohol and drugs. By comparing DNA of family members with substance abuse, scientists have pinpointed groups of similar genes and similar ways protein bind to genes and relatives not found in people without substance abuse issues. And so not everyone that uses alcohol or drugs will become addicted. Sometimes, from this article standpoint, sometimes based upon your genetic makeup, if you had family member who had a history of using alcohol and drugs, it has a percentage where you may or may not. All right. And so let's move right along. It says genes can influence the way drugs interact in your brain and body. This may make you more or less susceptible to addiction. For an example, if you have lower levels of natural opioids in your brain and you try heroin, it may impact you more. You may feel more of a pull to continue using it because of the high it produces. Genes also influence how your brain regulates moods and impulses control, while environmental factors may be more influential for trying drugs as a teenager. Genetic factors can impact repetitive drug misuse in adulthood. Drugs and alcohol can be a form of self-medication. And if you have problems regulating your mood and impulses on your own, substance abuse may provide temporary relief. That's why we advocate and we believe the need for professional people to be involved in our lives, whether you're an adult or you are someone who are of adult age or adolescent age. We believe that professional help is something that should be embraced, because a lot of times we may have these behavior or trying to figure things out on our own when there are professional people who can better give us a better insight of how to respond to certain behaviors or triggers or cravings or things of that nature that goes on in the environment. I don't want to get too deep as if I'm some type of guru. I am not. And so let me read the article and let the article speak for itself. You may use drugs due to a stressful environment, the article says. But your biology may reinforce the behavior. Ultimately, genetics and environment aspects are involved in most cases of addiction. Let me read that again. The article says, ultimately, genetics and environmental aspects are involved in most cases of addiction, right? So this is from this article that I'm bringing you. This is not Craig's assessment. This is what the article is bringing us, because a lot of times we in our community, wherever community that you're from, need to know and need to learn more about why or how. So now we're talking about what causes drugs and alcohol addiction, but we need to get more informed on what it is that make people want to use drugs or alcohol. Why do they chose that as an outlet or as a relief mechanism, as opposed to other methods of relief, whether other method of relief or alternative method can be exercising, eating right, reading books, going to pleasant and positive activities, being around positive and productive people. We need to find other alternative to grab hold to, and if we know someone who's leading down the path of drugs or alcohol, and you see that they have an addiction, number one, always seek professional help. And if you believe that you can be the best friend or loved one that you can for that person, I encourage you keep on encouraging them to do what's right, all right, or find alternative ways. But number one, always seek professional help because they're, believe it or not, some people say, oh, what they're going to tell me, they never lived or they never used drugs or they never used alcohol. They may never have. Who am I to say? But one thing for certain, two things for sure, if they have a degree in the field of alcohol and drugs, they may know something that can help us change our life around. I know for me, when I went through the drug treatment phase, I didn't look at it, well, that person who was facilitating the groups at the time, I didn't look at him and say, well, he don't know about drugs and alcohol. How you gonna tell me? I embraced the information and come to find out the information and the methods and technique and the coping skills that I learned was very, very, very much helpful. And so just never be closed-minded to learning new information, positive information, things that's going to be uplifting and things that can build you to the next level of being successful in life, right? So the next part, we want to talk about the link between mental health disorder and addiction. Substance abuse and mental health issues often go hand in hand. Very interesting. Let's see what the article says. About half of people with mental health disorders will have substance use issues in their lifetime. Mental health issues can lead to drug abuse and alcohol abuse. On the other hand, substance abuse can cause mental disorder symptoms. Similar environmental and genetic factors play a role in both conditions. Around 9.5 million Americans experience substance use disorders and mental health disorder together. That's better known as dual diagnosis, all right? So dual means two. So mental health and substance abuse. All right, this is known as co-occurring disorder, right? It's better known as co-occurring, but if you've been assessed with both, it's dual diagnosis. Let's clear that up. Either issue can predate the other, all right? For instance, listen close. You may suffer from depression and repetitively take drugs to try and feel better, which can lead to addiction. Conversely, you may use drugs for years and then try to stop, which can lead to depression and anxiety. All right? Many of the same parts of the brain are involved in the onset of mental health disorders and addiction. Both involve issues with, there we go, there are three that the article wants us to know: mood regulation, impulse control, and reward processing. Very interesting. Environmental factors that impact drug use and addiction can also be similar, making you more vulnerable to mood and mental health disorders. Regardless of which issue came first, addiction can complicate treatment for mental illnesses and vice versa. The following mental health disorders commonly co-occurring with addiction are post-traumatic stress disorder, better known as PTSD, depression, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, panic disorder, antisocial personality disorder, schizophrenia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, better known as ADHD, psychotic illness. All right. And so there's a lot of stigma, stereotypes behind mental health behind substance abuse addiction. So there is a lot of challenges that one faces if they have been diagnosed or fear of being diagnosed, because people have a tendency to label people who may be having the disease of addiction or who have a mental illness. And so we want to dispel or dismiss those labels, because people do need medication, and they need the right professional help, counseling, therapy. And so there's nothing wrong with getting healthy. There's nothing to be ashamed or feel guilty about of getting healthy. All right. And so I just want to add that little plug in right there. All right. So the next part we want to share is treating the underlying cause of addiction. The article says addiction is always a symptom of a larger problem. Sometimes the symptom doesn't always show as substance abuse. People may cope with underlying issues through a variety of unhealthy ways, such as eating disorder, sex addiction, dissociative disorders, or gambling disorders. It's important to address the root causes of substance use to help prevent relapse. It's also important so that you don't develop a cross addiction, meaning you replace substance abuse with other maladaptive coping mechanisms to self-soothe. If you detox from drugs and alcohol, but don't understand the reason why you're coping with substances, you're likely to turn to them again when you encounter the same triggers. Treatment for addiction is individual, and it will be different for each person. Let me read that again. The article says treatment for addiction is individual, and it will be different for each person. If you struggle with both a mental health disorder and addiction at the same time, you will need treatment for co-occurring disorders. If you're struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, it's important to choose a trauma-focused addiction treatment program. While what's needed for each person to get better is different for everyone, the common goals for addiction treatment programs are: rid your body of substance through medical detox. 2, identify underlying causes of addiction like co-occurring disorders, trauma, relationship issues, and stress. 3, engage in behavioral therapies that help you process these issues so that they lessen their hold on you. Number 4, get appropriate medication for co-occurring mental health disorder if necessary. 5, learn healthy coping skills to use in the face of triggers instead of substances. And 6, build a support system and recovery. Approaches used in your treatment plan may include, there are some of the approaches that if you have ever been in a recovery, residential, inpatient, or outpatient, or if you have been in a therapeutic community, oftentimes you will receive what is called a treatment plan. And this is geared to us, those of us who are either who've been through the process of treatment, and that is after an assessment has been done, and after it has been assessed that these are some of the approaches that one needs to adhere to, follow through, and accomplish. Here are what the article suggests as a treatment plan: individual behavior therapy, group therapy, family therapy, trauma-focused therapies like EMDR, all right? Medication management, alternative approaches, and aftercare. All right. And so I hope this has been informative. I hope it has been encouraging. I hope it has been something that you want to consider. And you can retrieve this article, as I stated earlier. And this article is from footprintstorecovery.com. You can go online and retrieve this article. The title, you can see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen. What causes drug or alcohol addiction? This will give you a better insight. If you was wondering or if you was curious, how come, whether it's you or your loved one is involved with the drug addiction or alcohol addiction phase. All right. This article here gives us clear understanding of some of the things that people are faced with in life, and these are some of the things that we can look at and do an assessment or self-evaluation on ourselves, whether it's been if you have been experiencing trauma, whether there has been some issues that you have witnessed in family members, household, genetics. However, this will give you a clear understanding as far as insight goes. But to further that, we always suggest, once again, seek professional help, whether it's for addiction, drug addiction, substance abuse addiction, or mental health. All right? And so that's it for this week. Take care. Work on improving your lifestyle to become better, healthier, and to be more focused, because don't allow anyone to tell you that you cannot be successful in life. Whatever you put your mind to it, it's a mindset. Once we begin to change our mindset on how we approach situations, how we approach our living environment, our condition. Once we begin to change, or maybe some people just need a little tweaking, maybe some people need a little bit more. However, put your mind to doing something that can bring about positive results, so that we can make our family, our household, our community a better place to live in. That's it for me. My name is Craig. I'm a recovery coach, and it's like always, join us for MIT. This is Men in Training. It's not exclusively for just male, females as well. All right, take care.